Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com. SaaS, RaaS, and now NaaS. Meter is here with networking as a service. That's NaaS. To bring fast, secure, reliable internet, networking, and Wi-Fi to your warehouse. With just one monthly rate and no upfront costs, Meter allows you to focus on getting connected and getting moving. No installation or hardware cost, and just one monthly fee allows IT teams to do more with less. And most importantly, warehouses save time on network troubleshooting, avoid expensive downtime, and get an overall happier IT team. Meter is already powering connectivity for companies with millions of square feet, including Stored, GoBolt, Veho, Trove, and more. Why not add your name to that list? Go to meter.com/thenewwarehouse to get your first month free. That's meter.com/thenewwarehouse for your first month free.
Today's warehouse needs to keep inventory moving smoothly and quickly. Meet these challenges with on-demand warehouse labeling from Brother Mobile Solutions. Our mobile and industrial printers will help optimize your operations to achieve the speed, reliability, and durability your warehouse needs. With easy integration for existing warehouse technology, convenient portability, and upfront affordability, Brother Mobile Solutions is at your side when it comes to warehouse labeling. Try one for free today by visiting brothermobilesolutions.com/newwarehouse or click the link in the show notes. That's brothermobilesolutions.com/newwarehouse to try one for free today.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Kim Vidrine. She is the Director of Operations at Employbridge, and Employbridge is focused on staffing in our industry. And we're going to get into maybe the hottest topic in the industry for a year, 2, 3 years now, maybe, is labor and kind of what the market looks like and how Employbridge helps with that. And also a survey that they do called The Voice of the American Workforce, which I think is pretty interesting. And we're going to get into a little bit of the results and takeaways from that and what that means for our industry. But first, Kim, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm doing great today.
All right. Well, it's great to get you on here, and definitely very interested to talk to you about what you're seeing out there in the labor market, as this is something that comes up in almost, I would say, 80% of the podcast conversations I have within the last year or so. We're definitely touching on labor. But before we get into that, why don't you give us a little overview, tell us a little bit about Employbridge and what it is you all do.
Oh, sure. I'm very happy to do that. I've been with the company over 20 years, and Employbridge is the supply chain's largest staffing provider. And we have 400 branches across the country. So we have a national footprint. We put close to 500,000 associates to work every year, and we've been in business over 30 years. Oh. And under the Employbridge umbrella, we have 8 workforce specialist brands. So there is a vertical for every step in the supply chain that we support.
All right, great. And I think I saw that your portfolio of brands is very comprehensive and something that I've seen in my work before, like Remedy, when I was a warehouse manager too. And, I think you obviously, with that wide reach, you get a good feel for what's going on in the market labor wise, I'm sure. So I think as we're kind of saying there in the beginning, I mean, the labor market certainly is something that's been such a hot topic in our industry, and especially with the shortages and the difficulty to get labor.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, I guess, what you're seeing, what Employbridge is seeing in the market right now. What does the labor market look like for our industry?
Yeah, well, and I think we all know that it's softening a bit right now, right? And based on supply and demand, and we typically use Indeed as our source when we're looking for its supply and demand data. January 2020 to today, we still have a 55% increase in job postings for logistics positions. So we're still see a significant increase. But when we look back at January 2021, we're back at that level and kind of remaining steady. But so, what I like to look at, just me personally, and I know it's something that we track every month, is the workforce participation rate. And, it hovers between 62 and 63%. Took a dive, obviously, during COVID, but it's come back slowly but surely. But that's the space where we really want to, motivate people to get back into the workforce. And that really kind of takes us to the survey. So we're so interested to know, and not us just deciding we think this. This is what we heard you say, when we were out at the warehouse and talked to some people. I mean, we really took a deep dive into understanding what is important to our workers.
Right. Yeah.
And hopefully, what we learned and we take action on is going to be able to address some of those folks who aren't currently working, and then the ones that are, encourage them to stay in the workforce.
Yeah. And I think that's such an interesting point there about the workforce participation, because it's one thing, I guess, to try and get people in the door and talk about the shortage out there, but that is a big question too, is like how many people actually now want to work in the warehousing industry. I think, the pandemic certainly allowed for a lot of people to explore different options. And I think, even in that sense where, I'll say for me, I was a plant manager, warehouse manager throughout the pandemic, and, there was no, work from home or anything like that. It was a normal day, except for all the other precautions with masks and things like that. But, I think people are looking at that and seeing that there's other maybe flexible options that they found during that time, and looking at warehouse work in the sense of, I don't know if I want to be in such a rigid type of schedule. So I think I'm curious, when you're talking to these people, and maybe there's some results from the survey you could share with us. I mean, what's some of the main drivers that's keeping people from wanting to work in the warehousing industry?
Well, I think that what we get from the survey is really what they do want, right? What do they want from us? And this is our 17th edition of the survey. It was previously called the Voice of the Blue Collar Worker, and we changed it to the American Worker this past year. And we were really excited at the participation rate. We had 29,000 people participate in the survey. And these are our workers, our hourly workers in supply chain, and as well as some of our customers' hourly workers. We also looked at the breakdown by male and female. So we had 58% of the respondents were male and 42% were female, which is an increase that we've seen. We just did this for the first time last year, and it's an increase that we've seen from the females participating. And then we had 48% of the respondents had work experience between 1 to 5 years, and then 23% over 10 years. So 75% of the respondents, we got 1 to 5 and then over 10, which I thought was interesting. And then 50% of the respondents were between 25 and 44 years old. So those are a couple of different generations there that are overlapping that did respond. But some of I think the biggest takeaways that we had from the survey, first of all, the economic uncertainty really did influence the results.
Mm.
We didn't see as much COVID influence in this year's survey as we have in the last 2 years.
Right.
But by and far, pay rates are the primary factor for people looking for a new job. I mean, that has just been a consistent response from this workforce. And then even with the rise in the average hourly wages since 2022, they're still being squeezed, I think, by the economy. And there's still some wage pressure there that companies will continue to see.
Right.
And then nearly half of the workers in logistics, it was 45.5%, report putting in more than 40 hours a week in this survey. And then we also talked to some gig workers. 90% of gig workers indicated they would look for more work over the next 6 months due to possible economic recession in 2023. So people are concerned about the economy, and they're planning, right? They're looking for how can I make more money?
Yeah.
And so we see people looking into gigs and that type of work. We also saw job security surpass shift and schedule flexibility in importance for the first time in 2 years. And again, that is tribute, I think, to the instability of the economy. And it now ranks as one of the top 3 priorities for workers. So they're looking for commitment from their employers. They're looking for, well, I think they're looking past their next paycheck more than they maybe did previously. And they're looking for a way forward. They're looking for training. And they're also interested in, based on what they told us, that they want to feel appreciated. And in fact, the response to a specific question, which is really interesting, as to what can employers do to gain your loyalty? And it was treat me with respect. It's a top priority to building loyalty and retaining workers.
Yeah.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Interesting, and I think that's such an interesting thing, the last point there, because for so long I think companies didn't necessarily value the warehouse worker as much, right? And they kind of didn't get to always participate in the same types of programs that a salaried worker might in the office and things like that. And I think it's interesting to see now that it's kind of the warehouse worker has become such a precious commodity in a sense, right? And hard to find people and hard to get people in the door. And now it's kind of like we want to be treated the way we believe we should be treated, which I think is the right thing. But it's interesting to hear that, and I'm curious too. In there, you mentioned the gig worker, and I recently moderated a panel at the work conference where we were discussing the flexible workforce. So are you seeing that more people in the warehouse environment are looking for more gig type of work versus ultimately landing like a full-time position?
Yeah, and you know what they want flexibility, right? What we saw in the survey that and this is logistics and manufacturing employees, and that's not traditionally thought of as gig work, type shifts, right?
Yeah.
But 1/3 said they would prefer 4 days, 10-hour shifts, and then more than half of the respondents were interested in a schedule where they could choose which 4 to 6 hour shift they work. So I think when you look at their need for some flexibility, the gig piece just naturally fits in there well. We actually have some clients that are working gig, and when we say gig and flexible schedule, kind of the way we think of it is that flexible schedule is where you'll take a schedule and maybe break it down. And gig, we talk about gig, those are like 4-hour increments. And so somebody could work 4 hours on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday type thing and decide how much they want to work. But 4 hours is not, it's not a huge amount of time for somebody to have to commit to. And then you think of folks that also have other obligations, and you think of maybe of more females, getting more females opportunity to re-enter the workforce. And that gives them an opportunity to work around some of their other obligations that they have. But no, we're really excited about. We're excited. We've got some customers that are really early adopters too. They want to be on the forefront, and they're seeing some very good results. And we're seeing associates who are really the associate experience is very important to us as well. And the satisfaction levels are very high. I don't have a number for that, but just we're seeing some really great results for the workers and the feedback from them.
If you're in the warehouse game, then you've probably used some kind of floor tape before. Trust me, I've put down thousands of feet of tape in my career. And when it comes to putting down tape, you want it to stay down. That's where Mighty Line comes in. Their patented technology allows their floor tape, floor signs, and floor markings to take the beating that a warehouse floor gets and leave minimal residue behind when it's time to switch it up. You know that we are big on safety here at the new warehouse, and that's why we love to see all of the different options for safety markings and 5S markings in Mighty Line's product offerings. If you're going to 5S, use the best and get Mighty Line. Get your free sample kit at mightylinetape.com/new warehouse. That's mightylinetape.com/new warehouse for your free sample kit. Yeah, very interesting. And I think it's interesting because you mentioned in there that it's not traditionally flexibility in our space in terms of the shifts. It's traditionally been very, very rigid in the sense. And even earlier you mentioned too that, a lot of high percentage of workers are saying that they're working more than 40 hours. And I think that it's oftentimes in some warehouse environments, fulfillment environments, I mean, it's like expected that you're going to work more than 40 hours. And, even sometimes it can be very difficult to get time off approved and things like that because of the high demand of the work. So, I mean, in that sense too, are you seeing that workers are looking for companies that are embracing technology, whether it's robotics or automation, to be able to give them more flexibility and also an easier, maybe a more productive type of work environment?
So I think when you talk about technology, that so another piece of the survey that the area that we asked about and saw just a really interesting response was advancement opportunities. And we have a really great opportunity here to take advantage of the fact that people are willing to learn a new skill.
Right.
We saw 44% of logistics workers are willing to invest 5 or more hours a week of their own time to learn a new skill. And then 54% of 18 to 24-year-olds are willing to invest their free time to upskill. So they're very interested in learning, and technology, I think, is a big part of that. So yes, indeed, I think that technology is playing a big part in motivating folks. It's in retaining folks. That's also, having advancement opportunities is going to go a long way in helping your workers feel secure in their job and that you're investing in them.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And especially when we look at, you mentioned a couple of times here, like the difficulty to get employees in, and then you want to keep them in, right? You want to focus on the employee retention. So it makes a lot of sense that employees are eager to learn and like you said, upskill and be able to do that training. And you want to be able to bring that in and enable them. So, I mean, you work with a lot of employees, but you also work with a lot of employers, I imagine, too, as well. So when you have these surveys and these kinds of things, I mean, what kind of advice are you giving to employers right now to be more attractive to potential employees?
So we are advising, when we're talking to our clients, is to, certainly look at the pay rate that you have and make sure that it's competitive within the market, because that really, and they've told us that is the primary driver for what they're looking for. And, and also think about your onboarding process, that when you're bringing new employees on, whether it's temporary worker or a full-time person, to really make that an experience and that shows them what could be, right? What that path forward looks like. I was at an IWLA conference and sat in on a really great panel discussion just about that specifically, that how much, we really need to pay more attention to that onboarding process and how we're painting the picture of the future for these folks, whether it's the technology that they'll be able to learn, we're going to teach you this, whether it's the flexibility that you may be afforded with your work schedule, just whatever that might be, what your growth potential is. That's really important. And then that part about being treated with respect, and you might think about that in terms of, we talked about overtime. We heard a statistic about overtime. And if we're not preparing them that there's going to be overtime, or we're making it mandatory, they're seeing that as a lack of respect, that you're not respecting their time, the other obligations that they have, the fact that they, have a schedule. And that's really important to them, that they have some transparency with their company. They're looking to their company to share how well the company's doing, and being transparent about that. And that kind of feeds back into the job security need. But those are the types of things that we're, when we do a survey too, this is something that, I think it's really important. If you're going to ask people for their feedback, and, we're asking you a question, we want your feedback, and they take the time to respond, that we need to do something with that.
Right.
And I think that we take that very personally, and we do that and report back out the things that we're doing. But we also counsel our clients the same. And these are the things that you can do based on what they told us to make their work experience better, to really develop loyalty and to retain your good employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that makes a lot of sense there. And being able to be in a position to advise those employers on what to do, I think makes a lot of sense too, to help them to keep these employees in the door and get them in the door too. It sounds like the worker really is looking for some, they want to be respected. They want to be recognized as an integral part of the business, which they certainly are. And they want to develop along with that business too. If there's no visibility to where they can go from here, right? And then, they're going to go somewhere else where they think there's better growth, or, maybe a little more money, like, 50 cents more an hour might be just enough to get them out of the door. Whereas, if you're showing them path and giving them visibility into what's really going on, then 50 cents may not play much of a role, because they may be looking at the more long term, which I think is a great thing to know, and definitely an interesting thing there. So we talked a little bit about the flexible worker, flexibility, and gig workers and things like that. But you guys recently added a new brand to the portfolio called Blue Crew, correct? And that's workforce as a service. So I'm curious to hear about this, because I certainly, software as a service, hardware as a service, robotics as a service, a couple other as a service things are out there. And now this is the first time hearing workforce as a service. So tell us a little bit about that, and what is that?
Well, we acquired Blue Crew in late 2022, so last year, and they're workforce as a service providers you mentioned, and combine W-2 labor with a workforce platform and data analytics. So we really feel like just with the scale of Employbridge and the resources and the footprint that we have to take Blue Crew and really revolutionize the industry. It's a best of class platform. And I, when I first was learning about Blue Crew when they came on, I thought it just, I'm like, wow, this is really great. You think about like Uber or Amazon, right? So if I have a need and I need employees, then I'm going to go out into this platform. I'm going to get what I'm asking for. And what's really exciting is it's the transparency, it's the control that both sides have. That the customer has control of, who comes to work for them and can choose and pick favorites and see exactly who's there and when they're there. And then the employee, they have that same opportunity to pick the type of opportunities they want to participate in and the work they want to do. And just some of the results have been amazing when we look at time to fill orders and the show up rate. They've been just amazing. It's just minutes in our major markets to be able to fill an order, and the show up rates are in the 90% or better, which I think we all know in our industry that's pretty good. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah, it's really good numbers because I know myself, working with staffing agencies in the past, if we wanted one person, we would order 3, just hoping one would show up if it was critical.
And we're not ordering books here. We're working with people, but we had 83% of folks in our survey say that they would be very happy to manage their work life on an app.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. And so, there's a couple, companies I've talked to, heard of that are doing these kind of gig work, flexible workers for the warehousing industry specific or manufacturing. So, but I see that Blue Crew on the website is mentioning, and I think predominantly from what I understand, they're 1099 based, but I see Blue Crew is mentioning that it's a W-2 workforce. How does that work for the employer who's utilizing Blue Crew? Is this person working for them directly, or they're working for Employbridge? How does that work?
They work for Employbridge, and that's just a huge advantage. Yeah. Again, the associate experience is really so important to us, and this, I think, it really is a differentiator that they do come in as W-2 so they can participate.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting model. And I think, it makes a lot of sense because there's a benefit for the employer, but also the employee that wants that flexible work too. And I think for me, it makes a lot of sense because there's been so many times where, we bring somebody in and, there's there's kind of the expectation that, maybe this is going to lead to something more. But I think, looking at these kind of flexible and workforce as a service types of models, it seems like there's it's like a mutual understanding that the employee, they want the flexibility. So it's not like, they're feeling like they have to do something else. They're coming in for, their 4 hours, their 6 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, whatever the case may be for a special project, busier day, something like that. And then it's done. And then, want them in the future, bring them in the future. But I think it works kind of mutually on both sides. And I think it can help a lot to bring in higher productivity. And then also, on the employer side, help you with your labor cost too, because you're not holding somebody for extended periods of time just in case you need them, right? It's like you can kind of get them almost on demand, right?
Right. Well, and that's the beauty really of the contingent workforce in general, and the role that the staffing agencies we play is that we do allow the client to have that flexibility, right? By giving you people when you need them. We're just doing it faster now, and we're eliminating some of the obstacles or challenges to get people to work. So we're really excited about what the future looks like for our industry. I think this is really something that's gonna change the way we do business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely an exciting time and very interested to see how it continues to evolve in the industry. And we'll see if a year from now we're still talking about labor shortages or retention, or what's the ongoing conversation. But
I'll add something. I do know that when we look at the generations, we don't have as many people coming in. So we're there's definitely gonna have to be that automation and the robotics to keep the work going out the door.
Yeah.
But, we're just going to be teaching people new things, right? Teaching them new skills, how to repair a robot and mechanical type work that's going to be involved. But we'll probably still be talking about people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's inevitable. People will always be there, but I mean, I think it's kind of back to your point about, people want to be trained and developed on new things. And it's a great way to start that path as you start to bring in automation robotics and teach them different things about those solutions and how they can work with them. So very interesting insights from you, Kim, and Employbridge and the survey. It's really interesting to talk to you, especially after, like I said, so many conversations are happening around labor shortage from all different aspects of the industry. It's great to get some insight from the survey from you. So if people are interested in learning more about Employbridge, how can they do that?
They can go to the Employbridge website and you'll find a link there that'll take you to a full report of the voices of the American worker.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put all the links and information about that at thenewwarehouse.com too, so people can easily find it. So Kim, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.